Chapter 11 Golden Jubilee Celebration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With a more prudent idea, Baron finally only spent £40,000 to invest in this game. Of course, to be on the safe side, he did not sign the check directly to a gambling company, but instead placed bets on 4 companies, so that it would not be too conspicuous. £40,000. If calculated based on the 115 odds of Senegal beating France when he bought it, then Baron can get a bonus of £600,000 before tax. This can directly increase his principal to more than £600,000. Therefore, Baron is looking forward to the opening game of the Asahi World Cup. At this time, the male servants are no longer like the old times, and their horizons are limited to the circle of nobles. In fact, even in earlier times, they could hold some important servant positions in the homes of higher-level nobles. None of the people really come from the bottom of society. Many children from middle-class families and even some college students will use this as a springboard for their accumulation of connections. Therefore, Ramos didn't understand anything. He stayed with Baron and watched him sign out checks one after another to bet on this game. Naturally, his heart was not very peaceful. After all, even if you are not a very experienced fan, you will understand the gap between the French team and a team like Senegal, which is somewhere and has never been heard of. Now seeing Baron's behavior, he can't help but feel a little worried, and he is very worried about this jumper. If the young master takes off his clothes, he will lose all his family property faster than he previously expected. Baron also noticed Ramos's emotional change, but he didn't say anything to him. It's the same truth. Words can be very powerful sometimes, but most of the time, they are not as convincing as tangible achievements. So no matter what he said, he couldn't make others change their minds before the results were revealed. What's more, as a noble master, there is no need for him to waste too much words on the other party at this time. It is enough for each of them to do their own thing. Master Baron, your costume has been delivered. You can try it on now. In his London apartment, Ramos took out several sets of clothes and placed them in front of him. This time when he came to London, in addition to placing bets on the Asahi World Cup, Baron also had another important thing to do, which was to participate in the Queen's Golden Jubilee celebration. June 2 this year is the 50th anniversary of the Queen's accession to the throne, and the entire UK will celebrate it with a Golden Jubilee celebration. However, since the beginning of May, many activities for this celebration have been underway, and golden buses prepared for the celebration have begun to appear on the streets of London. As one of the only 20 non-royal dukes in the UK, the Duke of Devonshire family has long received an invitation from the royal family and will participate in some of the activities of this Golden Jubilee celebration. Originally, it was Baron's father and brother who received the invitation, but because they died suddenly and unexpectedly, as the sole heir of the Duke of Devonshire family at this time, Baron Cavendish needed to attend on behalf of the family. This time of celebration, according to past traditions, Baron should avoid participating in some entertainment activities when a loved one has just passed away, but if there are very important activities that need to be attended, he can make an exception, and in the new century, the binding force of this restriction has been very weak, and this celebration is still very important to Baron and even the Duke of Devonshire family. First of all, Baron is the sole heir of the Duke of Devonshire family, but the inheritance and nomination process has not yet been completed. Therefore, appearing in such a celebration is very meaningful for the entire Duke of Devonshire family. Appearance, moreover, according to the family trust fund manager Yulia and the butler Sean, the Cavendish family is now in great difficulty. Baron represents the family at the Queen's Golden Jubilee celebration. He can also see if he can attend the Queen's Golden Jubilee celebration at that time. Get help from the royal family or other noble families. After all, there are only about 20 non-royal duke families in existence now, so it is only right that they support each other. Because the members of the Duke of Devonshire's family participating in the Golden Jubilee celebration were replaced by Baron's father and eldest brother, the decision was made a little hastily, so there was no time for his clothes to be fully custom-made for the ceremony. Can only choose the most suitable one from high-end finished formal wear, and then let the tailor make certain modifications according to his own figure. Fortunately, Baron's body shape is very standard, so the tailors don't need much work. After putting on this suit, Baron is eye-catching. His appearance itself is the kind of handsome but not too feminine, which makes people feel very sunny. In addition, he is nearly 190 centimeters tall and has a well-proportioned body. He is just like a clothes rack, which makes this suit just right. Lewin's aura of nobility. Master, you will definitely become every woman's dream lover that day. Even though he was a personal servant and had been around Baron on weekdays, so he was very familiar with him. Ramos couldn't help but praise him when he saw him. I also think these clothes are good, so let's do it. Baron looked in the mirror and looked at the appearance of his current body, feeling very satisfied. The Asahi World Cup, held between RB and South Korea, was played at a time that was not particularly friendly to England, but it was okay. The main reason is that London time is earlier than Asahi time, so the opening game of the World Cup between France and Senegal, which is held at 19:30 in the evening, is exactly noon here in London. If this is not bad, then the game at 14:30 in the afternoon is 5 or 6 in the morning in London. Well, the fans have to get up early. The result of the game did not deviate from the track of Baron's previous life. The French team still lost to the Senegal team with a score of 0-1. This also means that at 15 times the odds, Baron successfully recovered £600,000 from the £40,000 bet on this game, victory in the first battle. Seeing such a result, especially after going to redeem the prize, it was impossible for Baron to say that he was not happy and excited. For him, the greater significance is that history has not changed and has not gone astray. Therefore, the futures of his memory can be used and believed in for reference. In this way, he is very sure that he can win a big victory in this World Cup. Of course, the betting method also requires strategy, different from the 1998 World Cup in France, after 4 years of development, because online betting had already appeared at this time. The scale of global betting on the World Cup once again set a record, according to what he found on the internet. In the first game of the Asahi World Cup, France vs Senegal, according to data from regular betting companies around the world, the total betting scale exceeded €1.5 billion. But even so, when narrowing the scope to the British region, Baron's betting amount still needs to be planned and cannot be too conspicuous. It is simply 2002, and the British Gambling Act 2005 has not yet been implemented. Otherwise, the real name system and limits for betting would have forced Baron to place bets in neighboring France. Chapter 12: The Queen's Interview. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ahead of the Golden Jubilee celebrations, Baron was summoned by Her Majesty the Queen. This is not the first time Baron has come to Buckingham Palace. To be precise, in his memory, he accompanied his father several times during some royal celebrations. However, he was personally received by the Queen. This is definitely the first time. In other words, if Baron was not the only heir left in the Devonshire Duke family, it would be difficult for him to be summoned by Her Majesty the Queen before he was officially awarded the title of Duke. Although he had already expected it, when the reality was faced by Baron, he still couldn't help but sigh. The fact is that the Queen did not summon him for long. She just showed up and chatted for a few words. The content of the chat, on the one hand, was to express regret for the recent events that happened to the Duke of Devonshire family. The Queen said that she had originally planned to attend their family's funeral in person, but she was really busy, so she sent the Prince of Wales. Your Majesty, the Crown Prince, is going. In Baron's view, the reason for this may be that it is the Golden Jubilee celebration of the Queen's 50th year on the throne, so not only herself, but also people around her certainly do not support the Queen attending such a funeral. What's more, although the Queen looks energetic, she is already 76 years old after all. She specifically mentioned the old lady of the Duke of Devonshire family. I heard her name when I was younger and later talked to her at several gatherings. It's really sad to hear about her passing after so many years. In addition, the Queen also stated that she will personally award Baron the title of Duke during the ceremony. As for the rest, there is none. The implication of this is obvious, that is, she also knows the situation of the Duke of Devonshire family at this time. If the family can survive this crisis, they will deserve nothing less, but if Barons can't survive this crisis, there's probably nothing they can do to help. Baron did not have too many illusions about this. After all, it was obvious that since World War II, the most obvious point of successive British governments was that they continued to restrict the nobility. Even in the new century, they have this weakening began to be directed at the royal family. Under such circumstances, in order to maintain the relationship with the government, the royal family could not support the nobles too obviously, and having said that, after World War I and World War II, and until now, countless British noble families have been submerged in the long river of history. In view of this situation, the royal family is not willing to get involved. After all, if I helped you this time, will other noble families help you next time? Although there are only more than 20 non-royal duke families, there are so many others including marquis, earls, viscounts, etc. If we really intervene this time, I am afraid there will be no peaceful life in the future. Therefore, I felt sorry for the Duke of Devonshire family, but they still stood on the sidelines. This time the Queen's reception is just a process before the Golden Jubilee celebration officially starts tomorrow. In addition to Baron representing the Duke of Devonshire family, there are many other nobles, celebrities, and dignitaries who have also been received by the Queen. It is better to seek help from others than to ask for yourself. Baron had already realized this, so after returning to the apartment, he immediately began to study the next bet. He did not place a bet on today's game. After all, the World Cup will last for a month, and it is impossible for him to place a bet on every game. In that case, it would be too obvious and high profile, and it's not that he can still remember the results of all the games. The ones that left a deep impression on him only accounted for about 1/5 of them. However, he still has some impressions of tomorrow's game, because there are Argentina and England in those games. The Asahi World Cup is one of the few World Cups in which Argentina did not appear in the group stage. Group F they are in has 4 teams, Nigeria, England, Sweden and Argentina. Nigeria, the African Eagle, is a traditional strong team in Africa. England is also a traditional strong team in Europe. The Swedish team is not weak, and coupled with the Campus Eagle and Argentina, this group can be said to be a dead group. In the end, Argentina had 1 win, 1 draw and 1 loss, with 4 points, and was jointly eliminated by the other 2 teams, England and Sweden, which also had 1 win and 2 draws. In tomorrow's game, Argentina will defeat Nigeria, and England will draw with Sweden. These 2 games, especially the latter one, can be bet, although the last meeting could be said to have ended on bad terms. After Baron was received by the Queen, Yulia visited him again. After hearing from him the process of the Queen's reception of him today and asking for some details, Yulia sighed. Even if they can come out and say hello to those banks, that's how it is now. Everyone always has a duty to the nobles, so the royal family is very cautious in this regard. What's the attitude of those banks now? Hearing Baron's question, Yulia shrugged. Fortunately, we still have time. The fastest loan maturity is only 2 months from now. However, within this year, a total of more than £15 million of loans will mature. If the losses cannot be solved well before the problem, well, at least give the other party some confidence. I'm afraid even if you want to extend the loan, it won't be that easy. How much funding will we need in 2 months? The loan of £2 million from Barclays Bank is about to expire in 2 months. This money was part of our assets in London that were mortgaged at the time, so we either have to give up these assets, or we have to find a way, or sell some other assets. Assets are used to raise funds, but during this period, many real estate properties cannot be sold at high prices, and real estate in London has even fallen a lot in the past 6 months. It can be said that the internet bubble crisis that broke out on a large scale last year had an impact on the global economy. After all, the American stock market was deeply affected. The Nasdaq index fell nearly 80% from its peak, and it is still continuing to this day. In the doldrums, as the most important part of the world's finance, the crisis in the United States spread to the world and started the decline of the European economy. Of course, my lord, the first thing for you now is to find a way to pay the inheritance tax and complete the inheritance procedures for the family title and assets. Before leaving, Yulia said. Also, London will be very lively during this period, but you still need to be extremely careful, especially at night, and don't appear in nightclubs or other carnival parties. Once you are spotted by those gossip tabloids, you will be if the report comes out. I'm afraid the negative impact will be very big. The joy of suffering is precisely because of the huge losses of the family trust fund, so for Baron, the inheritance tax required to inherit these assets has been reduced a lot. Because of the tax-free nature of the trust fund, after calculation, the inheritance tax he needs to pay at this time is even less than £2 million. You must know that more than half a century ago, his grandfather faced inheritance taxes of up to £7 million. This can also be seen from one aspect: the decline of the Duke of Devonshire family at this time. Chapter 13 Concert. You are listening at novelfull.audio. June 2nd is the day when the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the Queen of England's 50th anniversary on the throne begin. Because it falls on Sunday, more people have time to participate in such a national carnival. According to the latest data, about 1/3 of the British people will participate in various celebrations during this celebration. When Baron came out of the apartment, he saw British flags flying everywhere in the streets and alleys of London. The British people, who were usually somewhat reserved, became uncharacteristically wild and held various parties and open-air dances on the streets. Interestingly, during this celebration, many stores in England announced that they would sell various products to people at prices that were the same as when the Queen ascended the throne in 1952. It can be said that it was a very successful commercial promotion. Today, Baron is about to participate in a thank you event sponsored by the royal family. After the event, a grand open-air classical concert will be held outside Buckingham Palace. In fact, after yesterday's interview with the Queen, Baron has completely given up on the idea of seeking help for a family crisis at such a royal social event, but no matter what, as the future Duke of England, it is necessary to engage in more social activities, and in today's open-air classical concert, it can be said that the world's most famous classical and pop musicians and singers will come here to celebrate the Queen, so even if it is regarded as an entertainment event, it is worth going. Baron's predecessor, as the second son of a duke's family, did not receive some aristocratic studies and training from an early age like his older brother. On the one hand, because of his status as the second son, there was generally no need to do so. Of course, it has to do with the different personalities of himself and his brother. Therefore, in the memory of Baron's predecessor, most of the impressions about other noble families were only about the younger generation, such as which family's girls are more beautiful and sexy. Because of this, after arriving at Buckingham Palace and meeting many nobles and celebrities, Baron spent a lot of effort to remember each other's identities. Fortunately for him, since he came to this time and space, the current Baron has gradually become accustomed to a better memory and faster thinking ability than his previous life and predecessor, so he can be called a photographic memory at this time. He seems to be quite comfortable with the workload of remembering people's names, titles, and identities. Hello, Lord Baron, I am Ian Butt, from the Butt family, and this is my wife Chrissy. Just as Baron began to socialize, a middle-aged man in a suit with a rather elegant lady in a light yellow dress came to him and said hello. It should be noted here that in England, there are specific rules for addressing nobles. In England, nobility is divided into hereditary nobility and life nobility. The so-called hereditary nobility is a title that can be passed on to the next generation, including Viscount, Earl, Marquis and Duke, while life nobility can only be awarded to one person and cannot be inherited. Just like that's what it's like to be a baron. Among them, people respectfully call the Duke and Duchess Grace, and the nobles below the Duke, including Marquis, Earls, Viscounts and Barons, can all be called Lord. Therefore, although Baron is the only heir to the Duke of Devonshire family at this time, he has not yet been ennobled, so when others call him, they call him Lord, just like Ian but in front of him at this time. After introduction, Baron knew that the other party's father was an Earl. At this time, the other party, as the first heir of the family, also held the title of Viscount. At the same time, he also owns a real estate company and has carried out real estate projects in many places in England. It seems that the scale of the company is not small. I was deeply saddened by the sad news about the old Duke. After hearing Viscount Butte's words, Baron's eyes swept across the faces of the other party and his wife. Lord Ian, did you know my father before? Yes, I have also talked about a cooperation with your father, which is about the renovation plan of the Victoria gas tank in King's Cross, London. At that time, the old Duke was quite interested in this, but he was busy with other things at the time, so it was delayed. Baron still has a vague impression of the place the other party mentioned. He should have seen it in the asset directory of the family trust fund. However, after all, there are too many items in that directory, so he will not be too concerned about it. In-depth understanding, so I said to Ian at this time. Sorry, Mr. Lord, you know, our family has too many things to deal with recently, so I need to go back and ask about the things you mentioned. I fully understand this. In fact, this time I am going to come up with another plan, which is for us to directly purchase the land for the gas storage tank and transform and develop it ourselves, so that you can get your money back immediately. Funds to make up for losses. Viscount Butte said to Baron sincerely. Of course, I'm afraid now is not a good time to discuss it in detail. Here is my business card. You can contact me for detailed discussions later. Yes, your lordship. After bidding farewell to each other temporarily, Baron met the Prince of Wales and the two princes beside him. The Prince of Wales showed enthusiasm and introduced them both. Of the two princes, his elder brother William is 2 years younger than Baron and is currently studying at the University of St. Andrews. Baron actually had a good conversation with each other about the university courses, and there was no trace of the previous relationship between Baron and Cather. A story, before, he specifically found some relevant reports. It seemed that Cather and William were not officially in a relationship at this time. Another Prince Harry, who will be more rebellious in the future, still looks a bit shy at this time. He is studying in high school courses at Eton College, the most famous school in England, and he is also familiar with Baron. Next, everyone began to move to the square outside Buckingham Palace to attend the open-air classical concert that will be held here. This concert was attended by 18 members of the royal family, as well as many nobles and celebrities. Together with other people who came, the total audience was 12,000. Baron had heard before that the preparation for this concert took 2 years and was very expensive. It can be said that top stars and artists from Britain, the United States and other countries have come here to perform on stage to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Queen's accession to the throne, in addition to the live audience. As many as 40,000 people gathered outside Buckingham Palace to watch this star-studded gala. On a giant screen, I have to say that the feeling of being there in person is still very good, except for the fact that the daughter of a certain duke sitting next to Baron persistently invited me to the parties she sponsored many times, or to go out and have fun together. Chapter 14 Gas Storage Tank Modification. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Baron, it's really you. I haven't seen you for a long time. Aurora. Nice to meet you. Why are you here? Today I went to a celebration with my friends and went shopping. I just came back. By the way, I live nearby now. When Baron returned to the apartment in the afternoon, he originally wanted to walk at the intersection to feel the celebration atmosphere in London at this time, but he met Aurora by chance, with long golden hair, delicate facial features, and a tall figure. There is no doubt that Aurora is an eye-catching presence wherever she goes. More importantly, she was once one of Baron's lovers in college. Aurora was a popular figure in the school, and she and Baron were once called the Golden Girls. However, later, because they couldn't stand Baron's playfulness, they finally broke up with him. For this reason, after seeing Aurora greeting him, Baron immediately recognized her from the memory of his predecessor. I have to say, Aurora, you are becoming more and more charming. You're still so good at talking, Baron. The impression of the girl in front of me still comes from the memory of my previous life, but now I see her reaction and expression. It is obvious that she is quite interested in me. Aurora was wearing a gunmetal gray coat and white shirt today, with black pencil pants and nude high heels, looking very smart. Do you have time later, Baron? Let's go to the bar and sit down together. Maybe we can talk more about our recent situations. Sorry, Aurora, I look forward to this very much, but it's not convenient for me to go to bars and places now because... By the way, I saw what happened to your family from the newspaper. It's really sad. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have mentioned that. Like many aristocratic families, Baron did not disclose his aristocratic status when he was a student. When he fell in love with Aurora, the other party did not know this either. However, with the recent reports about the Devonshire Duke family, Baron is the only remaining heir of this ancient Duke family, and his photos have appeared in various reports many times. Aurora was able to learn Baron's identity. No wonder. But if you don't mind, Aurora, I hope I can invite you to my home for a few drinks. Is this convenient? Your girlfriend. Of course it's convenient, I'm on my own now. Is that the gas storage tank near King's Cross Station? Yes, it is the property of the Cavendish family. The Viscount Butte you mentioned has talked to us about jointly renovating and developing it. Yesterday, Baron met Viscount Butte and his wife at Buckingham Palace, and heard them talking about the land for the Victoria gas storage tank in King's Cross. He vaguely remembered that that land was indeed once included in the asset catalogue of the family trust fund. I had seen it before, so I asked Julia Moore, the manager of the family trust fund, and got a reply from the other party. Julia told Baron that this storage tank is located near King's Cross Station and consists of 3 huge gas storage tanks connected to each other. These gas storage tanks can be traced back to the Victorian era. These gas storage tanks and part of the land nearby originally belonged to a gas company in London, and a female member of the Cavendish family obtained the rights to the gas company because she married another marquis. Part of the shareholding eventually led to the land containing 3 huge gas storage tanks, which at the time had been abandoned. Because she had no heirs, she gave this asset to the then Duke of Devonshire in her will, and it became one of the assets of the Devonshire family. In the following decades, the Cavendish family did not think about developing this land. However, the removal of these 3 huge abandoned storage tanks cost a lot of money, plus the Cavendish family funds. There was not that much money at the time, and there was not that much enthusiasm for real estate development, so this place has been shelved. In fact, the location of these gas storage tanks is quite good, in a relatively central location in London. Therefore, not long after, several real estate companies, including the company owned by Viscount Butte, negotiated with them to jointly develop there. The most active one was Viscount Butte, but what happened later was known. Because of a sudden accident, the old Duke and his eldest son died, so the matter was shelved. At the beginning, the old Duke was very confident in the investment in the London Star. Indeed, the performance of the investment at that time was indeed good, so what he meant was to fund the development there with Viscount Butte and the others. In the study room of the apartment, Julia sat on the sofa in front of Baron and said to him seriously. Indeed, although the area is not particularly large, the entire land is about 6 hectares, the location is indeed good, very close to King's Cross Station. If it can be successfully developed, it is still very promising. Since the beginning of the century, London's real estate has been on an upward trend. In contrast, families that have accumulated huge amounts of wealth from real estate development have also continued to emerge. Therefore, Baron's investment in his London Star dad, who is extremely confident, plans to use the profits to develop his land in the centre of London, which is a good reason. However, with the explosion of the London Star investment project, the entire family's finances fell into financial difficulties, and the development of the gas storage tank land was shelved indefinitely. Viscount Butte told me that they are going to change the way of cooperation and directly purchase our piece of land for them to develop themselves. Ms. Moore, what do you think of this proposal? The location there is still very good, and there is potential for development. But with our current financial situation, we cannot continue to invest money. This depends on your thoughts, Lord. If we sell that land, we will use the funds. It is also one of the options that can be chosen to fill investment shortfalls. After all, Julia is inclined to agree to this plan, but the prerequisite still depends on Baron's own intention, and she will not give a conclusion too clearly. At the same time, her implication is that even if she sells the land, it will be used to make up for the shortfall in the previous investment, not to do other things. She is really guarding Baron. In that case, let's wait and see what kind of conditions Viscount Butte gives us. It's almost 10 o'clock, would you like to get up and have something to eat? That after sending Julia away, Baron returned to his bedroom again and said to Aurora, who stretched out a white jade-like arm outside the quilt, covered her face with her long hair, and seemed to be still sleeping. I'm so sleepy, I still want to take a nap. Aurora still murmured sleepily. It's all you who caused all the trouble last night. I feel like I'm going to fall apart. Chapter 15. You are such a bastard. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After hearing the other party's angry words, Baron smiled and asked. But you enjoyed it very much at the time, and you asked me. You know, some delicious food often requires some effort to taste, and those efforts are worth it compared to the unparalleled experience in the end, aren't they? F***K, I was crazy, Baron, you were not that strong before. I have to say, it was an overwhelming experience, but if it happens like this every time, I'm afraid I will break. That I have to say that this kind of compliment from a woman is indeed very useful to men. The state of the two learning knowledge last night indeed surprised Baron himself. It can be said that in his previous life, his experience of learning knowledge was never so intense. At that time, he thought it was because of the powerfulness of his current body, but the memories from his previous body and Aurora's words rejected this, so now, I can only attribute it to some small benefits after my rebirth. After all, such magical things as rebirth have already happened, and it is not so unacceptable to get some additional benefits. Finally at noon, Aurora got up from the bed, with a bit of laziness, and ate her breakfast and lunch with Baron. Wow, are these all Chinese food? I didn't remember that you liked these, Baron. There's no harm in trying it more. What do you think of the taste? Well, it's actually not bad. This pork ribs tastes great. As for the rest, how can I say, it's very special, different from the Chinese food I've had before. After coming to London, Baron can finally change his taste. Well, it means food. So most of the time, he would specify takeout from a nearby Chinese restaurant. You must know that due to taste issues, Chinese restaurants overseas will adjust according to local preferences. The owner of the Chinese restaurant that Baron found was from Shandong province in China, which was more in line with Baron's taste. Moreover, he specifically asked for authentic Chinese food, not improved ones. Therefore, when he tried it in Aurora, the taste was very different from the Chinese food she had eaten before. In other words, sweet and sour dishes like sweet and sour pork ribs are more in line with the taste of locals like Aurora. No matter what, it's much more delicious than our British food, isn't it? This is well known, Baron, so luckily we still have French and Italian food, but I have to say that starting from today, I will eat this sweet and sour pork at least once a month, no, every week. I don't know if it was because she spent a lot of energy last night, but Aurora actually enjoyed this meal very much. Honey, are you free this afternoon? After eating, she suddenly asked Baron softly. How? My father happens to be in London too. I thought if I had time, I could meet him and have a meal together. Aurora's words inevitably made Baron a little wary. I have just learned knowledge from her. Do I need to meet my parents now? Isn't it a little too fast? And to be honest, the reason why he was with Aurora. Baron actually didn't have any other ideas, it was just that the other party was his ex-girlfriend, and the two had a close relationship. In addition, she was also more proactive at that time. It happened that she had been living a vegetarian life after her rebirth, so she habitually hooked up yesterday, but hooking up is hooking up. He really has no idea of substantial development with Aurora. Although Aurora's conditions are very good from all aspects, Baron is only 22 years old now. He was not prepared to establish a relationship with any girl so early. What's more, Aurora already has. Aurora, don't you already have a fiancé? Baron said to Aurora calmly. Last night, he and Aurora were not just drinking, they were also reminiscing about their past relationship and their subsequent situations. Of course, after a few glasses of wine, Baron did not feel obviously drunk, but Aurora's eyes became more and more blurred, and she told a lot about her current situation. Among them, she complained about her family's marriage, planning to set a marriage for her. The other party is also a wealthy family, engaged in shipping trade. I've only met him a few times, and we're not engaged yet. I haven't even agreed yet. Baron. Aurora stood up, took Baron's arm, and said. Although Bob is a nice person, very gentlemanly, and well-educated, he and I don't have any heartwarming feelings. Since fate allowed me to meet you again yesterday, I found that I still like you. But Aurora, I still feel that it is going too fast, and you should know that I have been busy with family affairs recently. Maybe you have seen relevant reports. Indeed, as the newspaper said, our family is now facing with the financial crisis, it is very likely that I will go bankrupt. I am trying hard not to let such a thing happen. I'm sorry, but now is really not the time to consider personal issues. After Baron said these words, Aurora's eyes widened. I thought those things in the newspapers were all nonsense. You know, often those reports are based on facts and are exaggerated. I also hope so, but unfortunately, due to changes in my family, I do have a lot of responsibilities now, which makes it difficult for me to take care of other things in a short period of time. Then you were with me yesterday. Well, Aurora, we are all adults, aren't we? And at least I regard you as a very good friend now. You. Aurora could hardly believe what she just heard. She threw away Baron's arm, and her chest heaved violently, showing her excitement at this time. You're such a bastard. No, Baron, you haven't changed. You've been such a bastard from the beginning to the end. I thought we were such a fool. And I never want to see you again. When he saw the girl walking into the bedroom, he grabbed his coat and handbag and walked towards the door angrily. Aurora, I think we should talk calmly. Maybe you have some misunderstanding about me. But the girl didn't respond to his words. She slammed the door and left with a bang. Well, hopefully you'll change your mind. Baron said this as if talking to himself, this is a new book. The data is very important. I urge my friends to read it every day. Thank you. Chapter 16 Just in case. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Queen's request for more funding from Congress proves that there is a problem with her source of income. Because the Queen signed an agreement with the government and promised to pay salary taxes, and the expenses of the royal family members are increasing day by day, the Queen, the head of the family, is facing a very embarrassing financial crisis. In the past 10 years, the Queen's personal expenses have increased by £15 million every year, which has added a lot of burden to the royal family. You know, since 1993, the royal family's income has dropped sharply, and the government's subsidies have also been cut at the same time. The Queen's Sandringham House suffered heavy losses due to the foot-and-mouth disease crisis last year. It ran a deficit for the first time in many years and has yet to turn a profit. Her shares have also lost more than £12 million in value due to the global economic downturn, making the Queen's financial situation even worse. Putting down the newspaper in his hand, Baron couldn't help but think deeply. Just as the whole of Britain was holding the Golden Jubilee celebration to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Queen's accession to the throne, The Independent suddenly released a detailed report, listing many exact data to illustrate that the royal family was affected by the global economic impact, and continued increase in expenses and financial crisis. A spokesman for the royal family immediately denied the report, saying that the royal family's financial situation was very good and that the report was completely alarmist. However, in Baron's view, even if the situation of the royal family at this time will not be as serious as in this report, it will still be affected to some extent by the global economic downturn. I am afraid this is why the royal family has not treated their family in the past. There is no clear reason for support. After all, the landlords have no surplus food. The time came on June 5. Through betting during this period, Baron's capital had increased from the initial £100,000 to a huge profit, exceeding £5 million. As mentioned before, this time the Asahi World Cup can be said to have frequent upsets, and it can even be regarded as the World Cup with the most upsets. It is precisely because of this that upsets correspond to odds that are much higher than normal game results, which is what Baron likes. Just like Argentina, in this World Cup, they failed to qualify from the group. Equally tragic, there is Portugal. Well, in addition to Portugal being too stretched and losing to the US team in the first game, Portugal was also unlucky to be placed in the group of South Korea. You know what? Understand, and in addition to these upsets, the Chinese team has also entered the World Cup. The group it is in has the champion of this World Cup Brazil, there is also the third place in this World Cup Turkey, and Costa Rica is not a weak team. It can be said that because of the Chinese team, Baron remembers the scores of this group's games very clearly, and can directly bet on the scores to get higher odds, of course, although the funds in his hands have swelled to £5 million through betting. At the same time, it also means that from now on, if you continue to bet with this amount of funds, it will be very conspicuous. In order to keep a lower profile, Barron even began to divide the funds. Some of the funds were still scattered at various companies' betting points in London for betting, while the other part of the funds crossed the strait and went to France on the other side for betting. Fortunately, there are Eurostar high-speed trains at this time. It doesn't take much time to cross the channel to reach France, which is very convenient. Also, at this stage, Barron has not only changed his strategy, not betting more frequently, but choosing more high-odds games. He is also preparing to take advantage of the funds at this time in the next few days. Spend £2 million to pay the inheritance tax, complete the family inheritance process, and officially obtain the dukedom and control of the family trust fund. This step is still very necessary, because in addition to the change in identity and the ability to control more assets, the various resources available will also be richer than at this time. The reason for making such a decision is that Barron also figured out a reason during this period, that is, the previous reports about the financial crisis of the Duke of Devonshire family first appeared in a gossip tabloid. This is very likely to be some force similar to Viscount Bute that I encountered before, who has various thoughts on certain assets of his family, but this kind of report was able to appear in many influential newspapers later, which is definitely not something that ordinary wealthy and powerful businessmen can do. In this regard, Barron has some guesses, that is, there are more powerful forces involved. Just like the Prime Minister of England, the British Prime Minister at this time was Bruno, who came from the Labour Party. After his successful re-election, it was the time when his power was at its strongest. The background of the Labour Party also represents his attitude towards the British aristocracy, which is to try his best to weaken them. In 1999, he reformed the House of Lords, which was composed of nobles. He abolished the qualifications of more than 600 hereditary nobles and retained only 92 hereditary members in the House of Lords. It can be said that there were almost no rights in the past. The House of Lords is becoming increasingly useless. Therefore, at this time, a little influence can amplify the voice of the Duke of Devonshire's financial crisis, which will cause it to encounter more resistance in resolving debts. This may ultimately lead to the decline of the Duke's family, which is indeed very likely. After all, it would be possible for a ducal family with certain influence in England to disappear, which is definitely what the other party would like to see. Of course, these are just Barron's guesses, but one thing he is sure of is that even if he will not encounter resistance from the government in the process of solving the family's financial crisis, he will certainly not receive any support. This is why he decided to pay the inheritance tax as soon as possible and complete the family inheritance procedures. He didn't want this matter to encounter any more variables during the delay. Master Barron, this is the invitation sent by someone today. After receiving the unique invitation letter from Ramos, Barron opened it and learned that it was an invitation to invite him to a banquet, signed by Viscount Bute. Sure enough, the other party started to take action. It can be said that the Golden Jubilee celebration that began during this period, as well as some reports about the royal family, also helped Barron attract the public's attention. In England, of course, news about the royal family attracts readers more, so after that, reports about the Duke of Devonshire family almost disappeared. At this time, Viscount Bute sent an invitation to himself. The location should be his residence in London. It was obvious that this time the other party's goal was still to occupy the land where his family owned the gas storage tank near King's Cross Station. This actually made Barron a little curious. What kind of conditions will the other party offer this time? It seems that the answer will be revealed by then. Chapter 17 Prank. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The London residence of Viscount Bute, Chelsea, whose full name is Kensington Chelsea, is a royal borough under the jurisdiction of Greater London. Among the three traditional wealthy areas in London, Chelsea is more favoured by some aristocrats, because here, there are a large number of historic Victorian buildings and noble British mansions. The famous royal palace Kensington Palace is located here, of course. Correspondingly, the housing prices here are also very expensive, no less than in Kensington where Barron lived at this time. Welcome, Lord Barron. It's an honor to receive your invitation, Mr. Bute. After shaking hands with Viscount Butte, a white and flawless hand stretched out in front of Baron. He took the jade hand and kissed it gently. "Madam, your beauty can make the stars pale. Your praise is like a breath of fresh air, Your Excellency." Viscount Butte's wife, Chris, had a bright smile on her face. She looked at Baron's handsome face with her beautiful eyes, then pulled the equally beautiful girl beside her and said to him, "This is my cousin Bonnie, she is your school friend. It's an honor to meet you, Miss Bonnie." When Baron saw the cousin of the Viscountess, he had to admit that she had an excellent figure. Not only was she tall, but she also had great looks. He admired. "Your figure is really as good as those of supermodels, and you look familiar. I seem to have seen you somewhere." "Thank you for your compliment, Your Excellency. In fact, I have worked as a print model before, and now I am a host on Sky TV. This may be why you feel that I look familiar." The interior decoration layout of Viscount Butte's residence is still very modern, which is slightly different from his noble status. In addition, the dinner party was carefully prepared by the other party. It can be seen that the other party put a lot of thought into this invitation. During the meal, Viscount Butte did not talk about the land near King's Cross Station, and the atmosphere between them was relaxed and chatting. The topic involves the just concluded Golden Jubilee celebration, which is also the hottest topic in England recently. In addition, it is the World Cup and Michael Jackson's upcoming visit to London in a week. Bonnie is 2 years older than Baron. They both graduated from University College London. She can be said to be his senior. However, they chose different majors, so in the memory of Baron's predecessor, they are not really there. Saw her at school. With such a connection, the two of them also have many common topics and talk about some interesting things about school. In terms of appearance, Bonnie and Viscountess Chris have some similarities, but in comparison, Chris is more plump and mature, while Bonnie is full of youthfulness and very enthusiastic. As for the attire of the two of them, Viscountess Chris wore a long skirt, which was a more formal dress style, while her cousin Bonnie wore a suit skirt similar to business attire, and the shirt inside was more formal. The sense of design just now makes the whole look not too solemn, adding a bit of beauty. In particular, the pair of long legs wrapped in grey stockings peeking out from under Bonnie's skirt were straight and slender, which attracted Baron's attention. Of course, on the surface, he can't lose his composure, but there is no trace, and his eyes will sweep over there. On the dining table itself, Bonnie sat on one side of Baron, while Viscount Butte and Lady Butte sat opposite them. Therefore, Viscount Butte and Chris across from him may not have noticed Baron's slightly wanton gaze, but Bonnie beside him was surprisingly sharp. While Baron was discussing England's prospects in the Asahi World Cup with Viscount Butte, Bonnie stood up slightly and moved her chair back, so that more of her legs were exposed on the tablecloth. Outside. We tied with the Swedish team in the first game, and there is also Argentina in the group, and the Nigerian team is not weak either. It seems that our group of death is really not optimistic. I really hope the boys can create miracles. Participating in the discussion about the World Cup, while talking, Bonnie still sat upright as usual, but put one leg on top of the other. This movement made her long legs even more eye-catching. However, in this scene, Baron, who was sitting next to her, could see that through the tablecloth and the dining table, the Viscount Butte and his wife opposite were invisible. Know what she is doing under the table at this time. Therefore, Baron's eyes were immediately attracted to Bonnie's long legs. Just as he looked over, he also noticed the other person's gaze. He raised his head and met Bonnie's eyes, only to see her blinking at him quickly. This woman definitely did it on purpose. Of course, these are just a small episode tonight, a little prank from Bonnie. This also once made Baron wonder whether the reputation of his predecessor as a playboy had spread so widely. After dinner, Viscount Butte invited Baron to his study for tea. He knew that tonight's drama was coming. "Lord Baron, you should remember that the last time we met, I mentioned my intention to cooperate with your father. Is that the land near King's Cross that holds the gas tanks?" "Yes, the location is pretty good. The only obstacle is those huge abandoned storage tanks." Viscount Butte picked up a cigar and handed it to Baron. "You can try this, the good stuff from Cuba." Baron was no stranger to cigars. whether it was his previous life or his predecessor, so after taking it, he skillfully picked up the cigar cutter, cut off the cap, toasted it patiently, and finally smoked lightly. "Take a sip and feel the mellow aroma in your mouth," at the same time, Viscount Butte said. "Originally, I hoped to cooperate with you to develop that piece of land, but now, I know that you may have some minor difficulties in terms of funds, so I can give you another option, which is to purchase that piece of land. We develop independently, so that Lord Baron, for you, can also recover a sum of funds to solve the current difficulties." "It seems like a good suggestion." Baron leaned back on the sofa, looked at Viscount Butte in front of him, and asked with interest. "I wonder what price Your Excellency the Viscount can give for that piece of land." "We asked a professional institution to conduct a valuation of the land and finally determined the purchase price." Facing Baron's gaze, Viscount Butte said slowly. £8 million, in cash, will be paid as soon as the contract is signed. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 18 Decline. You are listening at novelfull.audio. £8 million. Upon hearing Viscount Butte's offer, Baron raised his eyebrows and his expression darkened. "I'm afraid this price is not sincere, Your Excellency Viscount. I can understand your thinking, Lord Baron. If that is a normal residential land, based on its location, it would be worth at least £20 million. Viscount Butte was not too surprised by Baron's reaction. He still said to Baron calmly. "But first of all, your piece of land was originally used to build gas storage tanks for the gas company. Therefore, although the gas storage tanks have been scrapped, the land is still industrial land. If you want to carry out commercial development and build residential buildings, if it is for building or commercial use, the land properties need to be changed. In England, similar to China, the land bought and sold also includes agricultural land, industrial land, commercial or residential land, etc. It is not that you can build whatever you want after buying the land, but it must be based on the properties of the land. For use, if you want to change the properties of the land, you must obtain approval from the relevant government departments, otherwise you will be punished. According to Viscount Butte, the land owned by the Duke of Devonshire family near King's Cross Station is itself industrial land. Although the location is good, it cannot be measured according to the value of residential land. The price of industrial land is definitely much lower, and more importantly, there are 3 huge abandoned gas storage tanks on that land. In order to dismantle them, a lot of extra money will be spent, so the price of £8 million, which is already very reasonable." Baron was somewhat non-committal about these words of Viscount Butte. He knew that what the other party said was probably the truth, but equally, since Viscount Butte was so active in wanting to buy the land, it also meant that there was definitely value in it that made him excited. If Baron is really facing a family financial crisis as Viscount Butte believes, then I am afraid that in that case, there is a high probability that he will still choose to sell the land, even if he will contact him more before that. Some buyers strive to raise the price slightly, but the final selling price will not differ much, but in fact, Baron has already had a solution to this financial crisis, so in this case, a plot of land near the center of London will be more expensive for him. After all, he also knows that what will happen next. In recent years, land prices in London have continued to rise, and the magnitude is not small. Most importantly, land in a good location is becoming increasingly difficult to obtain. After all, the purpose of coming to Viscount Butte for the banquet this time was not only to see what kind of conditions the other party would propose, but also to obtain more information through direct contact with the other party. I would like to know whether Viscount Butte was behind the previous reports on the family's financial crisis. I still need to ask other people's opinions on this matter. I can understand this. After all, I just took over the family not long ago. I just hope I won't be kept waiting too long. After Baron found reasons to evade, these words of Viscount Butte are very interesting. Thank you for your hospitality. I hope to invite you to my place next time. It's an honor, Lord Baron. When Baron was leaving, Viscount Butte held his hand and said. Regarding the land for the gas storage tank, you can call me at any time. I'm waiting for your reply. Mr. Baron. Just when Baron turned around to leave, he heard Bonnie say to him. I just have to go home. If I'm on my way, can I give you a lift? That's no problem, I'll be happy to serve you. Just like that, when leaving Viscount Butte's house, the pretty Miss Bonnie got into the back seat of the Rolls-Royce with Baron. Miss Bonnie, where do you live? I'm over at Bayswater. If it's too far away, just drop me off nearby. It's not far, it's very close to my place. Baron really wasn't lying. Bayswater was right next door to Kensington where he lived, but Kensington was on the north side of Chelsea where he is now, and Bayswater was also on the north side of Kensington. Does Miss Bonnie live with her family? That the Rolls-Royce was driving on King's Road. After a brief silence in the car, Baron took the initiative to chat. Mr. Baron, you can just call me Bonnie. I live in my own rented house now. My parents are in Southampton. Then you can just call me Baron from now on. Bonnie, I'm a little curious. You majored in psychology in college. Why do you think of becoming a host after graduation? It can be regarded as a coincidence. I was working as a model in my spare time. Later, I participated in a competition, and then I met someone from the TV station. I tried my current job on the recommendation of the other person. Besides, how many people can really do this? I hope to engage in my own professional job after graduation. Fortunately, I still enjoy my current work and life very much. Indeed, you are very lucky to be able to find your interests and get good opportunities. Baron's words were actually inspired by his previous life. In his previous life, his original ideal was to be a cartoonist, and he did have some talent, but in the end he was forced by life. Entered the financial industry, until he came to this world inexplicably. However, to Bonnie's ears, his words sounded a bit like Versailles, so she said lightly. Of course, my life is incomparable to that of a big shot like you. Born in a noble family, many things that we can't achieve no matter how hard we try, are within easy reach for you. In response, Baron just smiled lightly and said. The gift that fate gives you has already been marked with a secret price. Just like me, it seems that the title and family property are within easy reach, but before that, I need to work hard for the future of my family. While saying this, Baron looked at the street scene receding under the street lights outside the car, the light reflected on his face through the car window. From Bonnie's perspective, against the light outside the window, his side face was like a sharp silhouette, adding a bit of melancholy. For a moment, she felt my heart beat faster. When the Rolls-Royce slowly parked in front of an apartment, the two of them realized that they had arrived at the residence that Bonnie had mentioned before. Time flies really fast. This sentence appeared in the minds of the two people in the back seat almost at the same time. I'm here. Thank you, Baron. It's nice to meet you today. Me too, Bonnie. When he saw the girl opening the car door, slightly raising her long legs wrapped in gray stockings, and preparing to get out of the car, Baron said. By the way, can you leave your phone number? Maybe, I'll ask you some questions about the TV show, or have time to have a drink together. Actually, I'm not that proficient in TV programs, and I don't really like drinking. Bonnie turned to look at Baron and smiled. But I'd love to give you my number. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 19 Conjoined Triplets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After England defeated Argentina 1-0, Baron could even faintly hear the cheers coming from the street outside the window. After all, this game greatly increased the chances of England qualifying for the World Cup group stage. At the same time, this game also made Baron's funds exceed £10 million in one fell swoop. After the game, he met again the administrator of the Family Trust Fund, Julia Moore, in the study of his London apartment. In fact, before accepting Viscount Butte's invitation to attend the banquet that day, Baron had already had a phone call with Yulia and discussed the land next to King's Cross Station. Finally, he decided to find out what kind of purchase price Viscount Butte would propose. £8 million. After Baron told Yulia about Viscount Butte's plan and offer, she thought for a moment and said, "Although this price is slightly different from the price we evaluated, it is not too different." "Oh. How did you evaluate it originally?" "Because Viscount Butte once mentioned to the Duke about jointly renovating and developing the land, we hired relevant agencies to value it. The valuation at the time was £9 million. Yulia already had doubts about Baron's question. She found a document from her briefcase, handed it to him, and continued. "It's just that the accident that happened later interrupted the plan this time, and the two parties did not reach a formal agreement." Baron looked at the document that Yulia brought. It was indeed an assessment report on a gas storage tank plot with an area of about 6 hectares near King's Cross Station. The report was signed at the end of April this year. At that time, the appraisal agency finally made comprehensive adjustments based on the recent successful sales and listing prices around the land, combined with the fluctuation coefficient of land prices in London in recent years and the attributes of the industrial land. The valuation was set at £9 million. So even based on this valuation, Ian still lowered the price. Regarding Baron's statement, Yulia nodded. "That's for sure. Even though there will be differences in valuations from different institutions, the difference is basically not too much. However, considering the well-known financial crisis of our Duke of Devonshire family, then he gave a cash payment method, naturally the price will be lowered accordingly. So even if we raise the price, there won't be much room for it. It can only be £300,000 to £400,000 more at most." "Yes, Your Excellency, after all, since last year, affected by the world economic situation, London's land prices have dropped slightly after 2 years of growth. The future expectations are not too optimistic." In fact, when Viscount Butte said the price of £8 million yesterday, Baron knew in his heart that this price must be supported by corresponding reasons and would not be too outrageous compared to the real price, because for things like land prices, even if there are differences, they are generally reasonable and will only differ within an approximate range. But even so, Baron still suspected that Viscount Butte must have other purposes that prompted him to purchase the land held by the Duke of Devonshire family. Otherwise, by purchasing this land in cash at an amount slightly lower than the market price, is it really a good intention to help you solve the family's financial crisis? What's more, it's very likely that before that, he also launched a public opinion offensive to target his family's financial crisis. "Ms. Moore, I want to go to the gas storage tank near King's Cross Station now." King's Cross Station can be said to be located in the centre of London, and the City Hall is right next to it. When the Rolls-Royce stopped at the side of the station and got out of the car, Baron and Yulia were able to see 3 huge gas storage tanks standing nearby on the Regent River. Those gas storage tanks and nearby a piece of land belongs to the Duke of Devonshire family. The history of these gas storage tanks can be traced back to the 1860s. They can be said to be relics of the Victorian era. Standing beside Baron, Yulia briefly introduced him. However, these gas storage tanks have long been abandoned because they are too huge. The 3 gas storage tanks have the same specifications, each of which is nearly 50 meters high. It is time-consuming and laborious to dismantle, so they have been kept until now. Of course, this is also related to some special circumstances in this neighborhood. In fact, although many people may not have seen King's Cross Station in person, they are certainly not unfamiliar with it, because in the movie Harry Potter released last year, it was the starting station for Harry Potter to go to Hogwarts. Platform 9 was filmed at King's Cross Station. It can be said that since then, many loyal fans of this series of movies have come here to check in, and King's Cross Station has also become a famous landmark in London. In 1830, a statue of the notoriously absurd King George IV was erected at the intersection of Battle Bridge. The statue aroused ridicule from the public, who nicknamed its location King's Cross. The statue was removed in 1842, but the area's new name, King's Cross, was retained. Between 1849 and 1852, the Great Northern Railway, GNR, developed London Terminal, King's Cross Station opened in 1852, replacing the temporary passenger station to solve the traffic problem on the main line. By 1860, King's Cross was rapidly developing in an all-round way as it became an important transportation hub. It was also during that period that gas lighting became popular, and King's Cross became the supply center for piped gas in London. It was during this period that the 3 huge gas storage tanks nearby began to appear. It can be seen that these 3 huge gas storage tanks are not only completely consistent in appearance, but also the internal beam lattice and rivet inlay methods are consistent, and are connected by a common roof ridge. Therefore, they have been used since the Victorian period. With the title of Siamese Triplets, after the Second World War, the British economy began to deindustrialize, transforming and upgrading from manufacturing to service industries. Road transportation gradually replaced railway transportation. More and more abandoned industrial land appeared across the UK, especially in the capital London. Including King's Cross Station and the surrounding areas, which are mainly transportation, logistics and industry. The canals and factories around King's Cross Station gradually became decadent after they ceased operations. By the 1980s and 1990s, the King's Cross neighbourhood had firmly ranked among the top 10 poorest constituencies in London and became one of the areas with the lowest commercial office rents in central London. It's full of drugs, prostitutes, low-end nightclubs and dance clubs. To this day, the situation here has not changed much, which is one of the important reasons why the gas storage tank land owned by the Duke of Devonshire family has not been developed. However, following Yulia's introduction, Baron's eyes slowly swept over the gas tank, the Regent's River, King's Cross Station behind him, and the surrounding buildings. His brows furrowed slightly, and a look of thought appeared on his face. Color, he seems to have found the most critical thread that runs through all these things. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much. Chapter 20. Who are you loyal to? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Let's go back, Ms. Moore. Hearing Baron's words, Yulia's eyes flashed with confusion. She didn't understand, so she came here by car, and then walked around the gas tank with the family heir. Then he didn't say anything and was about to go back. At this time, Yulia felt a little complicated about Baron's feelings. In addition to still being casual, taking the family's money and running to London to make so-called investments that he didn't even understand. He didn't even care about Chatsworth Manor and other properties, or he handed them over to Sean the butler. Or she still manages it by herself. Even when she went to the apartment where Baron lived that day, she could still smell the faint smell of alcohol. He must have been drinking and drinking again the night before. From this point of view, this young master still behaves like a playboy, but at certain times, Yulia was a little confused about the Duke's heir's thoughts. Just like just now, when she saw Baron's expression, she suddenly had an unfathomable feeling. Yulia shook her head subconsciously, as if to get rid of this incredible thought, followed Baron and got into the car. Ms. Moore, I am prepared to pay all inheritance taxes and complete the inheritance of the family industry. After returning to the apartment in Kensington, Baron's words made Yulia look surprised. Are you ready to sell that land? Your Excellency. No, I will use my own money to pay the inheritance tax. I hope you can contact me to complete the inheritance procedures for the title and family assets. Your own money. Baron's words made Yulia even more confused. Where did you get all that money? It would cost £2 million, that you must know that even in 2002, £2 million was still not a small amount. At this time, the exchange rate of pound to dollar was still as high as over 1.5. And in terms of purchasing power, it is far from comparable 20 years later. You don't need to worry about this. I can guarantee that it is all legal income. Well, my investment has made a small profit. F***K. Do you think I'm a fool, or am I crazy? A small gain. What can you do to get more than £2 million back on your £100,000 in just 10 days? Yulia almost said what she was thinking directly, but she still had sense, so she just said. As the administrator of the family trust fund, your lordship, I think it is necessary for me to know how you obtained the money. I do not want there to be any dangerous consequences, or something that will bring shame to the Cavendish family. Things will be revealed in the future. No, that's not what you need to know, Ms. Moore. Objectively speaking, there is no need to avoid Yulia about what Baron did during this period, but he still does not intend to be honest with her about it. After all, he could feel that the woman in front of him did not fully support him, or as the manager of the family fund, Yulia will fulfill her obligation to help Baron within the rules, but other than that, deep down in her heart, she does not have enough recognition and trust in him. These are not difficult to see for Baron, who spent more than 10 years in a fickle place like the financial circle in his previous life. In this case, similarly, the other party still cannot gain enough trust from him. You can rest assured that family honor is also something I cherish. Even though I have not yet become a real duke, I have always held myself to the standards of the nobility. But I will know this sooner or later, won't I? Yes, you will know sooner or later. Seeing Yulia's eyes staring closely at him, her chest rising and falling, taking deep breaths to stabilize her emotions, Baron walked up to her with a smile on his face. Before that, Ms. Moore, how about we talk about my brother? You mean Mr. James? In Baron's eyes, what made him interesting was that after he mentioned his brother, Yulia, who originally looked directly into his eyes, turned to one side, the look of sadness that flashed across the other person's face did not escape his observation. Yes, my dear brother, James Cavendish. As Baron spoke, he stretched out his fingers, lifted Yulia's chin, and turned her face to face him. It can be said that his action was very frivolous. A look of disgust flashed on Yulia's face and she took a step back. Baron didn't care about her reaction, he naturally put down his hand and continued. My brother is a kind man, hard-working, serious, and follows the sense of noble responsibility. You should think so too, Ms. Moore, am I right? Yes, Mr. James is completely different from you. He is an upright gentleman. Then what I've always been curious about is, if it were my brother, and he was the heir to the family at this time, would you always have the same questioning attitude? Yulia was silent for a moment, sighed, and said. Your Excellency, although my surname is not Cavendish, the Cavendish family is kind to me, so after the Duke granted me this position, I swore that I would be loyal to the Cavendish family and do my best. I can do everything I can to protect the family, including the industry, and reputation. So everything I do is for this purpose. If you feel that I have doubts about my attitude towards you, then I hope you will think about it. Is it because of your own reasons? Ms. Moore, your words really touched me. In this era, such traditional loyalty is really rare. Baron could hardly help clapping as he spoke. Loyalty will always exist in any age. So who are you loyal to? Ms. Moore, who do you think the Cavendish family is? My father? My brother? Or is it me? I have been loyal to the Duke, to Mr. James, and will continue to be loyal to the Cavendish family, those who are worthy of loyalty, if you are too, your lordship. Look, the doubts remain, Ms. Moore. Baron shook his head slightly. But I believe that if it were my brother, then you wouldn't have any doubts, and maybe it's not the reasons you mentioned. Well, maybe it's not all out of loyalty, but other stronger emotions. Your Majesty, what do you mean? You should know well, Ms. Moore. When I was cleaning up my brother's room, I saw a photo of you in his drawer. He kept it well. The person in the photo is mine. Brother, there's also you, Ms. Moore. Seeing Yulia's face change drastically and turn a little pale, Baron said with regret. Ms. Moore in the photo is completely different from now. Her smile is really sweet. Although I know that my brother has been engaged before, when I see the photo, I can't help but sigh. You two are really a perfect match. Woolen cloth. The data during the new book period is related to subsequent recommendations, so follow-up reading is very important. I beg you not to keep it all the time. If you feel that it is okay, read it every day to help increase follow-up reading. Thank you very much.